about women's safety, with many online sharing stories of when they've been harassed or abused. Joining me now to talk about how we can end violence against women is Nazir Afzal, former Chief Crown Prosecutor. Welcome. Thank you very much for joining us. Well, a lot of men are saying, how do they support women? What's your answer to that?
Well, I mean, it's really distressing reading the comments online of people who've been impacted, and women who've been impacted on a daily basis by sexual harassment, and obviously I've dealt with a significant number of femicides as well. So the answer, I mean, I've tried so hard. I tried to organise a million-man march in 2016, and 52 men signed up. I try, every time I do keynote speeches on the issue of male violence, some man will walk out of the room because he just can't take me challenging them. But the reality is that the only way we're going to change this is by changing attitudes. So, you know, men who tolerate violence against women are also more likely to perpetrate violence against women. The reality is that there are an enormous number of myths and assumptions and beliefs about maleness and masculinity. Somehow people seem to think masculinity means violence, and it's the exact opposite. You know, I've always told people, and I tell my children, my sons this, that it might require enormous courage, but when you are in a room and people are making light of the issues of male violence or making jokes about women, for example, it's not a joke. You must stand up, even if it means losing friends over this. And I don't see that level of conversation. But sadly, when we have this terrible incident like today, a terrible murder that we've had, we'll have a day or 2 or 3 days worth of conversations about this, and then it'll all die down and people will go back to doing the same old thing. What we need is men who are champions, who are speaking up. We need to challenge men who are undoubtedly
Nazir, I'm just sorry to interrupt you just for a moment, because I want you to continue in a moment, but just for now, say goodbye to viewers watching on BBC Two. Hope you have a good afternoon. Bye-bye.
Well, we need to demonstrate that violence is not manly. It's nothing to do with responsible masculinity. And that means that, you know, all the choices that women make. One of the things that struck me yesterday was we still blame women all the time. We keep saying, oh, what she wore, where she went, what she did, as if somehow that was in any way legitimizes what men do to them. And nothing is an excuse. And it starts in school. It starts with young people. We're going to change this over a generation. We've got to work with young people. One of the things the Welsh Government have done, for example, is introduce mandatory relationship education from year 1, right in primary school, where boys are taught responsibility and duty, where boys are taught about equality and boys are taught about their such issues as domestic abuse. And we need to do that in England. We need to do that across the United Kingdom. We need to make sure that our messages are not just aimed at victims. You've been picking up these messages to women about how they should keep themselves safe. No, we should do that, but we should also send out strong messages to potential perpetrators. We should tell them, if you're sitting at a dinner table with your children or at the bar with your friends, the ghost of any woman that you have violated will be standing over you. We've got to really come up with some strong messaging around this. And it comes down at the end of the day to every forum that you're in, every place that you are at, every table that you're sitting at, you've got to challenge people. And I keep saying this, that misogyny drives this. The hatred of women, the need for power and control is what drives this behavior towards women. And men need to stand up, speak up. And even if it means losing friends, you've got to do it.
You've packed so much into what you talked about there, and I'm sure a lot of it obviously will resonate. One of the things that you talked about is where it starts and the importance of the messaging to kids at school. So many people are getting in touch on social media, and Caroline Bennett really echoes what you were talking about there about the problem in school. She says it's essential that boys are taught about respect for women in schools. Sexual harassment of girls was rife in the mixed secondary school my daughter attended. The sheer amount was a complete shock and began as early as year 7. It needs to start in primary. What is going on that in 2021 the message is still to girls, don't wear short skirts because it could provoke the boys, and the boys aren't told about the other end of the responsibility on that?
Because some people are scared of having this conversation. You know, why should women decide that they can't go out after 9 p.m.? You know, I would love to call a curfew for men. That men, on the 21st of June, no man should be allowed out after 9 p.m. If I did that, just wait for the amount of abuse that I will get. The men, I'm afraid, don't see it as an issue for them. They see it as an issue of women's safety rather than male violence.
So then what about a law to underline that even the things that perhaps men don't see as that significant or important are actually made a crime? I was talking to Maya Tutton from Our Streets Now earlier, and she would like to see public sexual harassment become a crime. I mean, it could be as simple as winking at somebody on a bus where it's unwelcome, it's unwarranted. The man might think that is flattering. The woman doesn't see it that way and can feel quite vulnerable.
I agree with you 100%. We tried this. I mean, there are a number of police forces, for example, that have made misogyny a hate crime. They've said that if you demonstrate the kinds of behaviours that you just touched on, that potentially you could be prosecuted for that. So you probably don't need new laws. You just need the enforcement of current laws. But every time they mention that, you just watch the amount of abuse the police will get. They're constantly told, no, you cannot police what people think. I can tell you from experience that what people think drives what they do. And so we've got to work on that. We've got to make sure that people start challenging misogyny. And that, absolutely, if it requires new laws, the Home Secretary should be considering it. But even the laws that we have right now are not being enforced. And there will be another murder. There are 2 or 3 every week. And it's terrible, of women every week in such circumstances. And, absolutely, you are safer than you've probably ever been with the Chief Constable and Chief Commissioner is quite right. But 2 or 3 women will die every week. And that continues to happen because we allow men to get away with it.
Nazir Afzal, thank you for joining us. And do